Hey Tribe, on this episode of Wild Wednesdays, we talk about building a personal brand
Meal prep.
and are you in the right relationship? Hey peeps, welcome to another episode of Wild Wednesday. My name is Calvin Coyles. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. And if you already know who we are, then welcome back to the show.
I'm your co-host again, and I will be asking the questions and hopefully giving my 2 cents as well if you want it.
Some people have been known to say that she's the best part of the whole program. Guys, we're in Noosa right now.
No, we're not. We're in Byron Bay.
Oh shit, that's right. We're in Byron Bay. Sorry.
Look, they're similar.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's all on the same coastline, I guess. We're in Byron Bay. We arrived just a day and a half ago. We are ready here for our wellness masterclass with our Wild Year peeps, which is super exciting, and then 2 days of our business strategy with the Wild mentoring clients. So it's really beautiful. It's very Margaret River-esque. If you guys are familiar with WA, you'll know what Margaret River is. It's very similar to Margaret River, just bigger.
There's a little bit more foodie.
There's a lot of white linen. There's a lot of Birkenstocks.
There's
a lot of dreadlocks.
Which I like. Buddha bowls and whatnot.
Buddha bowls for days.
Anyway, big thank you to everyone who contributed with their questions yet again this week. We're really loving them, and we encourage you guys, any question that you have, please post them on the videos below, or if you're listening on the podcast, post them in the comments, or on YouTube, post them in the comments. We love getting fresh questions through, and we want to make sure the content stays relevant for you. So if you don't ask, you don't get, so please ask.
Also, shout out to everybody as well on the podcast. Before we jump into it, I just want to say how proud I am of the team and everyone that's contributed so far. We checked the ratings. We're only 2 weeks in. By the time you guys listen to this on the podcast, I think we'll be probably weeks 3 to 5. But we're already in the top 200 podcasts in the education category on the iTunes store, which is phenomenal. I was never expecting to do as well as we have so far. Obviously, we're in this for the long game, but to get some short-term results has been epic. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed, everyone that's left a review, everyone that's listening. Please make sure you do all of those things that really make a huge difference to us in being able to reach more people. Let's jump into it. Alrighty,
so our first question actually comes from one of our podcast listeners. So a huge shout out to JB137. The question is in the area of direction, and I really actually like this one. I have a question for Calvin to answer. How do you get mentorship if you're still in the early days and can't afford to pay the mentor? Hope you answer this awesome job.
Yeah. Well, look, first, JB, thank you so much. And look, I've been exactly where you are. I remember when I was at university, I knew I wanted to be involved in business. I knew I wanted to be involved in speaking and personal development. I knew I wanted to make an impact in people's lives. But obviously, I'm a uni student, so I didn't have any money available to me. So, we're fortunate today that we have access to platforms like podcasts, which really weren't around when I was at uni, and then access to YouTube. And so for me personally, I would listen to as many of the playlists as I possibly could. I would just literally binge watch YouTube videos. Rather than watching cat videos, I was watching Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy. I was watching Tony Robbins. I was watching Eric Thomas. Anything I could get my hands on in the personal professional development space I was listening to. Facebook today is a huge platform for that as well. Even Instagram's got some good stuff, and you can go deep with podcasts. So I believe that the best place to start is informal mentorship, whether that be through social or downloading free guides. And most people that are in our world today have some free products. I mean, we've got this podcast for you, the YouTube show. We've got our Wild 365 program as well to help people in that space. We've got our Wild Tester. There's a lot of free information available, and it really just requires your sort of self-interest to get out there and pursue that. That's where I would get started. Then, for a small amount of money, you can attend free live events with a lot of these people as well. Now, that might require you to travel and go over to the East Coast, for example. For me, I was in the most isolated city on the planet, being Perth. But, for me, a couple of $100 could get me over to see Tony Robbins and Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump back in the day at the Achievers Congress. So there's a variety of things that you can do. But I would get started informally and also read as many books as you possibly can. The top 50 CEOs in the world read an average 2 books every fortnight. So I would be reading as much as you possibly can and just soaking that information up on board. It doesn't cost a lot of money for that education. It's just your ability to follow through on it that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I also think asking the question, you never know, obviously it depends at the level that your mentor is at and how easy it is to get access to them. But if they're just someone that's in your community or maybe just someone that you follow online, you can always just ask the specific question that you're looking for or ask for their help. And I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, if you're just a genuine person who wants to go out there and make things happen and change the world, then it's highly likely that the person that you follow is going to give you some little tips and some mentorship hacks along the way.
Yeah, massive. I think there's a huge prim you can put on initiative. So if you're out there and you're watching this, guys, just take the initiative, make that happen.
Yeah, 100%. I know Calvin spends a lot of time answering questions that he gets via Messenger and stuff like that. So all you need to do is ask, and asking is the way forward. Awesome. Next question comes from Monica and is in the area of income. She asks, I need some budgeting tips. What's an easy way to get started with a budget?
Awesome. So, Monica, if you're watching this, what I want you to do is email support@wildsuccess.global, and we will send you a free 5-day quick cash program, which will help you save thousands of dollars. The last group we ran saved $125,000 in 5 days. Average savings was over $7,300. So do that program. But to give you some tactics on this podcast right now, one of the things that you can do is download an app which is called, Pocketbook? Mm-hmm. Yep, download Pocketbook. That synchronizes all of your spending. It'll help you understand where your money's going, and it's very important to understand that awareness precedes change and clarity is power. So understanding what you're spending money on gives you a good opportunity to then be able to cut back on some of those expenses. So that's one thing that I would do for sure. Second thing that I would do as well is, and this is a really powerful one, is pay for everything for the next week in cash. So if, for example, you get your wages put into your accounts, short of your direct debits, like, for example, rent, I would be taking out cash, and for any of your personal expenses, paying with things with cash. When we pay past things and we use our iPhones or we use credit cards or whatever, you don't really fully understand how much money you're actually transacting. And so if you do that for a week, that's a huge starting point. Budgets don't work. It's like a diet. As soon as you have a budget, you often are looking at cutting back on things. And so then you want more of the things that you can't spend any money on. I believe in strategic spending, and that's why when we do the 5-day challenge, we look at two things amongst many others. One is what's your necessities, and also what's your quality of life. So necessities are things you can't live without, and quality of life are the things that you want. Bless you.
Thank you.
Things that you want, but things that you can't reasonably, you can reasonably justify spending 5 times more money on. So those little things will make a huge impact.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do the 5 days quick cash that we have. It's sensational. Next question comes from Kelly W. Now I'm going to do my best. This is a bit of a long one, and it's a little bit... Anyway, so it feels like every time I post on Facebook, someone is trying to get me to join their sales team. And I believe that what she means by sales team is network marketing company.
Right.
Whilst it's annoying me, I'm concerned that I'm missing out on some kind of money-making opportunity, but there's so many out there. So should I be finding a diet, essential oils, or vitamins team to join? I don't want to be annoying this people pushing products on my friends, though.
Okay, so there's a lot in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot in that. Who's the question from? Kelly?
Kelly.
Kelly. So there's a lot in that. I think, Kelly, number one is that there's nothing necessarily wrong with network marketing, affiliate marketing, general marketing. Any business that's out there that's trying to make things happen is fantastic. And if you've got somebody reaching out to you wanting you to join their team, unless they don't know what, let's assume they know what they're doing and that you are an incredible asset to an organization, well, that's nice to be wanted, right, first and foremost. So one of the things I want you to understand, and this is vital for everybody that's considering any big opportunities in life, is that, and we say this all the time, the lion today dies from indigestion, not starvation. We think oftentimes that the reason why people are not successful is because they just don't get the opportunity to succeed. And to be fair, in parts of the world, that's definitely the case. But if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this on YouTube, wherever it is, the reality is you don't have a shortage of opportunity. You have a smorgasbord of opportunity. There's too much opportunity. You find yourself in a position where in many cases you will not be successful because you pursue too many things, not because you failed at pursuing one really good thing. In fact, there's a great book which is just called The One Thing, and it's all about just picking one thing. So if that one thing happens to be some sort of marketing initiative, then by all means go nuts with it. But don't jump at the shiny object syndrome. So much of that happens on Facebook, whether that be an opt-in, a download, a post, amazing opportunity. I remember, and Kim will testify to this, I think it was 2015, 2016, everyone on Facebook was marketing what was called a massive opportunity ad. And there's, the reality is there's massive opportunities every freaking day. So I would say, what is it that you feel you're best at and pursue that. If it's your natural gift and talent and you want to pursue that, then by all means go nuts for this. Then you are missing out on an opportunity. Be open to it. But on the same token, everything in this life requires tremendous amounts of hard work. Nothing was achieved single-handedly. There is no get rich quick. There's no fast track to success. There's a shitload of hard work. There's a tremendous frustration at times, but there's also tremendous reward. And it's about you picking something that you want to do the rest of your life. If that happens to be one of these vehicles, do it. If it's not, forget about it. Because the reality is it's better to do one thing really well than a lot of things pretty average. And I'd encourage you to grab a copy of the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, and also as well The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's also very powerful to consider as well. So yeah.
Yep, I love that. Wouldn't add anything. Next question comes from Jake. Jake asks, how do you get more comfortable being by yourself and spending time alone? I'm becoming more aware that I'm always looking for people to hang out with or distracting myself with social media and Netflix whenever I'm by myself.
Jake, this is a great question, and it's something for me that I've had to be quite deliberate with, because I'm always surrounded by people. When we do our live events and seminars, obviously there's hundreds, sometimes several hundred people. Even when we're in our team, Ash and I, we live together, work together, travel together. We're together 2/4/7, 365. So, one of the things that I've been quite deliberate about over the last couple of years is taking time, and by that, taking time out often on my own. And I find it very difficult to do. And I think probably, Jake, your big challenge and struggle is that you're trying to create that space in your current environment that's full of distraction. So it's hard just to go, cool, I'm going to switch off on the weekend and not do anything, because there's going to be people that you're accessible to. However, if you were to go and backpack in India for 3 weeks by yourself, or if you were to go and take a trip down south by yourself, or go on a retreat somewhere by yourself, then what that does is it creates space for other things. So I think it's something that you have to be very deliberate about today. I think it's so easy to try and do that and then get distracted because it's just an addiction. And so I think you've got to be very structured about it. I think you've got to be very deliberate about it. And my recommendation to you is actually to detox by going away maybe for a couple of days, a long weekend, somewhere close by, or putting a backpack on and taking a week off and going and traveling somewhere and just switching off. And I think if you were to do that, that's going to start to give you that ability to decompress. Also, a major, major thing that's underestimated, and it's one of the reasons why we've, here at the moment, sorry. It's one of the reasons why we're here at the moment in Byron Bay, is that nature decompresses you consciously, subconsciously. In the technical world that we live in, when we're looking at screens and phones all the time, the ability to deconnect, to go and stand in nature and to look at organic matter actually is being shown to biochemically reduce some of the pressure and noise that you're dealing with. So I would actually have like a screen-free day where you put all your phones and stuff away, your computers away, and you'll realize just how addicted you are to it. It takes a bit of time to wean yourself off that as well. So be patient with yourself, but also be quite structured.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time as well, we can use the company of other people and our devices as a avoidance technique for dealing with some of the stuff that might be coming up for us emotionally as well. So just being aware of that, and maybe even as a small way to get started in being comfortable by yourself and your thoughts and your emotions and things like that. Even just going for a walk where you don't take anything with you other than a notepad and pen, and just being present with yourself and seeing what's coming up for you, what thoughts are coming up for you, what are some things that you've maybe suppressing or using social media, Netflix, friends, whatever company, as a way of distracting yourself from actually processing and dealing with, and just journaling through that process as well, I think is super important, so that am I just trying to fill my space so that I'm not actually dealing with my own stuff? Or do I just actually not have any space, and every now and again I need to take space so that I can de-stress myself? So I just think having the distinction there, and then just bringing your awareness to what comes up for you when you are by yourself, so that you can process things, and then eventually it'll get easier and easier and easier for you just to take more and more time to be by yourself. Cool. Next one comes from Jeff. I'm really good at my job and I work with great people, but I feel like I could be doing more with my life. I've got no idea what that is though, or how to start, but I know I don't want to waste my life. So what do I do about that? So I'm going to say that's direction.
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And I think this is actually a niggling fear for a lot of people today, is that, actually the biggest opportunity is a missed opportunity, right? So number one, quote that comes to mind is from Simon Sinek. He says, don't be concerned by how quickly you're moving through life, only be concerned by how fully you're showing up every single day. And so if you show up fully every single day, then amazing opportunities are going to come your way. On top of that, it's better to be prepared for that opportunity and not have it than to have it and not be prepared. So I would not only be working on the job you're currently doing, which obviously you do it very, very well, I would also be looking at what does the next pathway look like for me? And this is vital for everyone to be aware of. You have a direction whether you're choosing it or not. So Jeff, if you're in this job right now and you're not actively choosing to go in a different direction, well, there's a path line that's sort of laid out in front of you, which probably involves some career progressions if that's something you want, as well as the sort of next 10, 20 years. You only need to look at your superiors and their superiors to see what that pathway looks like. If you want that, well, then it's about fast tracking that. If you don't want that, it's about choosing something different. Now, if you say, I don't know what it is that you want, there's probably 3 reasons that people don't know. One, you've never allocated the time. I would go back to my last comment for Jake, which is to create that time, go and travel, go and take a bit of time out, decompress, and consider what you want to do with your life. Or more likely is that you do know what you really want to do, but maybe you don't have the confidence or the self-belief to know how you're going to make that happen or what you're meant to do next. If that's the case, you should reach out, you should get mentoring, because it's important that you make the decision right now to start laying the foundations for that as well. You know, it takes about 10 years to create an overnight success story. So, you know, if you're in a position where you're good at what you're doing, keep doing that, excellent. But if you're not truly satisfied with that, if you feel like you can make a bigger impact, well, then you want to know what it is that's passionate to you, because whatever you're going to do, it's going to require tremendous work, and you're going to start to put the seeds in place to be able to grow that and transition towards that as well. So we must start with the end in mind. Don't try to make it up as you go along. Don't have a hope and pray plan. Take a moment, stop, take stock of your life, and consider at the end of your life, there's a great part of the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Covey talks about this principle of writing your own eulogy. What do you want people to say about you? You know, at the end of your days, what impact you want to have made in the world? You know, the hardest part is choosing what that impact is. And then, once you're clear on that, then reverse engineer that process. And I want everyone to be aware, the answers to these questions are the questions that keep some of the greatest minds up at night thinking about what they are wanting to do. Don't expect that over a latte on a Saturday, you're going to come up with your epiphany about this stuff. It's something that you're working on constantly. It's something you're writing about constantly. It's something that you're researching constantly. It's something that you're testing and then realizing it's not what you want. It's a process of self-discovery. So I want you to really be aware of that, and it only takes a bit of research to realize that some of the best among us didn't discover these things until years later. So I don't know how old you are when you've asked this question, but at 29, for example, I know that if you look at some of the greatest minds of our generation and of human history, that they maybe didn't discover this purpose until much, much later in their lives. So don't put the pressure on yourself so much, but just know, am I showing up every day? Am I doing the inner work to consider my big picture, and am I in alignment with that? That's where I would start with this.
I would say that we get asked this question super often, and it probably comes from a sense of a lack of fulfillment and a lack of feeling like you're actually contributing and making a difference. And I think an easy way to shortcut this whilst you're figuring out what it is that you want to do is find ways that you can contribute, whether that's volunteering and like making a difference in your local community so that you're working, you're also giving back, so you get that sense of contribution and fulfillment from doing things that actually matter. And then I'm sure that pathway will lead you to find out who the people are that you want to serve as well.
100% on that as well. I remember doing a session once when I was younger, and I wrote this line down, and it might be something worth considering, which is, do what stirs your heart, challenges your mind, and calls your body to action. I think if you follow your passions, well, then that pathway to impact will sort of, unfold for you.
Awesome. So next question comes from Erin B. And she asks, I've heard people talk about a personal brand. What does that mean? Why is it important? And how do I go about it?
Wow, Erin, that's a massive question, and it's a really important question. So let me just say, without a shadow of a doubt, that everyone watching this, everyone listening to this has a personal brand. And again, you either have one because you've built it or you have one by default. I mean, it's a good idea just to go ahead and Google your own name. And if something comes up, excellent. If nothing comes up, that's much worse. It's actually better to have negative things than no things at all. So your personal brand is so essential. If you're an employee, your employer, potential employer, is going to research you, find out a little bit about you. The best people, the best jobs, the best positions, the highest paid ones are not the ones that you apply for, the ones that people ask you to apply for. So you want to have a personal brand. Now, that's a personal brand that is almost like an online business card for you that's talking about you. How do you build a personal brand? Well, you build a personal brand through content creation, whether that be what we're doing now with videos, podcasts, for example, interviews, blogs, books. We have 3 best-selling books. Our 4th one's on the way. You do it through creating content, live events, seminars, getting out there, building a network and a community as well. In essence, if you go back, say 20, 30, 40 years ago, your personal brand was your reputation in a marketplace. Now that reputation's digital and it's viral. You can produce things that speak volumes for you. We've got hundreds of thousands of clients now in 80 countries around the world. So if you think about that, anywhere I go, in most countries that I go to, there'll be at least some people that have worked with us, that have downloaded things from us, or have had some exposure to us. Yeah. That's the place that you want to be in. In the world that we live in that's interconnected, you want to be in a position, and one of our mentors, Grant Cardone, said this just the other week. He says, it's not about how many people I know, it's about how many people know me. So I'm passionate about creating a personal brand because I know that if you know me, you will likely at least give me some time to help share with you how I can improve the quality of your life. And in doing so, I get the opportunity to share some messages with you, hopefully improve the quality of your life, and we can create a relationship moving forward. So it's absolutely essential. If you don't think you need one, you absolutely do. If you think you need one, there's always more that you can do. And I would get clear on what are some of the core messages that are important to you. That's very important, then start to share that. And don't be concerned with putting out material, sharing some of your insights and knowledge, sharing a bit of your journey. I know that for me, and if you follow my trajectory over the last 6 years, we've changed markets, we've changed businesses, we've changed names, we've changed our message, we've changed our branding, but there's been some consistencies, which obviously has been me, but obviously some of the things I've been talking about have been the same. I'm clear on my core principles, I'm clear on my values, I'm clear on what I want to share with the world. So, it's important to make sure that you're producing good quality stuff, you're getting out there. If you're not good on video, write blogs. If you're not good on blogs, then do podcasts. Everyone should have a podcast. Just because you don't necessarily have a huge following doesn't mean you can't get started. And I would definitely encourage everyone to start doing those principles as well. And just look at what do the top brands have and how can you start to replicate that in a powerful way.
Awesome. Love it. Next question comes from Beck N in the area of wellness. Tips for meal prepping to last the week. I want to make meals on Sunday, but still have nice fresh food by the last day. I can't eat gluten or dairy, but my husband and bub do, so seems to make things harder.
Baby, you're the one that should be answering that question,
yes.
Not me.
You have any tips?
Yeah, just follow whatever Ash says.
I would say
I've never meal prepped in my life.
In every
Uber
sense,
is my meal prep.
There is absolutely no way that anything that you cook or prepare on a Sunday is still going to be fresh by a Friday if you're actually cooking a meal. One way that can probably alleviate this pressure for you if having fresh food in the last day is a huge problem is I would, rather than meal prep, you can food prep. So cutting up your vegetables, portioning out your meats, marinating things that you need to marinate, but keeping them all separate. Like this, as soon as you create a meal out of something, it automatically is going to decompose and go unfresh a lot quicker because you've mixed things together and you're cooking things, so they've already started the decomposing process. But if you keep food in the right containers and you keep them separate from each other, and then just think of ideas that you can quickly throw together a salad or throw together a stir fry on the Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays, it's still going to be really fresh, but nowhere near as time intensive as if you've got to prepare all of those individual ingredients at the one time. So that would be my first suggestion for you. Another suggestion could be doing a half meal prep on a Sunday and then a half meal prep on a Wednesday if you do like to create those meals, or finding recipes that are freezer friendly. Obviously, you're going to lose the freshness aspect of that if you do go down that route. But if you are really time poor and you just want to put something in a microwave, then that might be an easy way to do that. And there's heaps of ways that you can make those meals and make them gluten and dairy friendly. Rice and stir fries, or a pasta, but you can use things such as the San Remo does a lentil pasta, which is the exact same consistency as normal pasta. Calvin eats it, thinks it tastes like normal pasta too. So there are different swaps that you can do to make meals that you can eat and also your family can eat. But I would say probably food prep rather than meal prep, particularly for the last few days, will make your life a lot easier.
Yep.
Awesome.
Hear, hear.
And we have one final question to wrap us up today. Comes from Tanya.
Hey, Tanya.
How do you know when you are in the right relationship?
Great question. Well, if you're probably asking it, you're probably not. That's probably the easiest way of looking at it. I think you know. I think you know that you're in the right relationship. And by the way, I have to preface all of this by saying that you've got to do the inner work of getting out of your own way first. Right? Because you can only really know if you're in the right relationship if you've got over all of the bullshit with regards to being in past relationships. Because otherwise you're compensating and people sort of seesaw who they choose. So let's assume you've done that. When you're in the right relationship, you know it because it just feels right. And I'm a big believer, and you guys have heard this from me consistently on the podcast and on the show, and that is come into a relationship or a new opportunity or a new business venture, whatever it might be, with absolute trust and faith that it's going to work, because there's no point being in it if you don't. So I go into a relationship with absolute confidence and faith that it's the right relationship until it's not, and then I make that decision. And so I think everyone should be aware of this, and this is something that we touched on in the beginning of our relationship, which is that everything in life has an impermanence. Like for example, people approach relationships in the same way they do meal prep. It's like, I want to do all my work on Sunday and hope it's all good by Friday. And reality is it's not, right? So both of us have been in long-term relationships before we were together. We made a commitment of spending our lives together, and we also fully appreciate that we're making that decision now at 29 years old. And if we're lucky and fortunate enough to still be together in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond, that's our intention. But there's a million things that can happen during that point in time. So, for me, this is the right relationship for me to be in right now. And I'm committed to working on that. And that's all I need to know at that point. It feels right for me right now. And I've got enough vested in the success of this that I want this to work because I love my wife and I want us to raise a family together and I can see us having a future together, that I'm willing to endure any of the small hiccups that go along the way in everyday life, that those little things are nowhere near on the spectrum of the big things that I consider to be important. And I think it's all about making a fundamental choice. For me, I don't date. I've never dated. The people that I've been with in my life have been, yes, we're together, let's be together for the rest of our lives. That's just the way that I operate. I'm an all or nothing sort of person. But if you're in a position where you've got that, I would say don't compare based on previous relationships. You've got to honor and nourish the relationship that you're in right now. And if you are in that relationship and it's a good relationship and you love the person, you want to spend the rest of your life with them as well, then just make the fundamental choice to do that, and then just go all in on that as well, and make sure that those things are obviously reciprocated on behalf of the person as well with you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if that question's coming up for you, then there must be something that inherently does not feel right. So, like, what's right about the relationship and what also makes it not right for you? So I'd probably take some time to actually just process how you're feeling within that relationship and why you think that question might be coming up for you. And if it's something that continually comes up for you over an extended period of time, then maybe it's not the right relationship. But I would always take the time and the space that if there is something like that that comes up for you and there's a question within you or a gut feeling or something like that, and you're not able to just be in the relationship and there's something else that's there, it might be something that's just within you that you need to work on, or there might be something that's fundamentally doesn't sit right with you about that, something within the dynamic of the relationship. So I would just ensure that you're always taking the time, because that's this huge, important thing in your life that's going to take up years in most cases. When you start a relationship with someone, it takes a huge amount of your time. So you want to be making sure that you're making relationship choices based on what feels right for you, not to fit a certain mold or because all of your friends are in relationships or whatever it is. So just make sure that you're fully aware of why the relationship is right, why it's not right. Is that something that you can work on together? Is it something that you're willing to move through? Is it something that just is coming up for you? Is it your fear of commitment? What is that for you that makes it not feel right?
I would say a couple of fundamental things that you have to have as part of any good relationship. Number one is there has to be mutual love and respect and trust. Number two is you have to have values alignment. So you don't have to like the same things, but you have to value the same things. So, for Ash and I, things that we're big on is personal growth. We're obsessed with growth. We're reading and learning and developing, because if Ash is into that stuff and I'm not into that stuff, right? I'm not talking about you have to do events and stuff together, but I'm getting the principle, like, if one person's a growth-focused person and one person's not, that relationship will not work, because you're going to just be growing apart. It's going to be a friction point. Another big issue is regards to finances. You've got to be on the same page with regards to finances. You don't have to be both people that are interested in it, but you have to be both committed to learning at it, committed to understanding it. Regards to health and fitness, you've got to have a similar buy-in to what you want your bodies to look like, because you marry somebody oftentimes when you're in your 20s and 30s they look very different in their 50s. And so if they're not looking after their bodies, well, then you fell in love with a person that looks a certain way. You know, you can't expect your partner to still love you in the same way they didn't have the same passion and drive and an excitement to be with you physically and sexually if you put on 25 kilos, right? Because you let yourself go. From a mindset perspective, you want to be with somebody that thinks the glass is half full, not half empty, that compliments you, that supports you, that uplifts you and inspires you. You want to be with somebody that's driven, that has goals and dreams and aspirations. Because, by the way, you can sort of hedge against some of these things in the short term. But in the long term, it builds up a resentment long term. So you want to pick somebody that you want to be with 20, 30 years from now. If you don't think this person has grown in the last 5 years, what makes you think they're going to grow in the next 50 years? It only gets worse from this point, not better in many cases. So just consider those things. When you're making a long-term decision with somebody, you need to consider, is this person likely to be someone 20 years from now I really want to be with? And if the answer is yes, then great. If the answer is no, well, then make that decision that it's a short-term thing, not a long-term thing.
Yep. Agreed.
Gangster.
I'm with you for the long haul, baby.
Me too, baby.
That was our very last question.
That's our last question, peeps.
Thank you so much for tuning in again for this week's Wild Wednesdays. As we said at the start of the episode, we can only deliver on what you guys ask about, so please make sure that you post your questions below, because we do want to tailor these episodes to you and your needs, and we really love doing it, and we love having different and dynamic questions that we haven't heard before. So if you have a question, post below and we will answer it next week.
Yep. Lots of love, good luck, and God bless, guys, and we'll see you live or online. Be bold, have fun, make an impact, and we'll see you on the wild side. Thanks, peeps, for watching another episode of Wild Wednesday. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and add a friend in. Post up your questions for next week, and we'll answer them.